This is a Uniden 2020 transceiver, which is second hand. I bought it from a friend recently, and there's been a few problems with it due to the edge connectors for these four boards. These radios came out in the mid-70s, about the time of the Yaesu FT101 and Kenwood TS520 transceivers, and it shares some similar things in circuitry, but that was around 40 years ago, and plastics aren't always designed to last a long time, and the plastic in the sockets for these four boards here is certainly a good example of that. When I first got the transceiver, it was working okay in terms of receiving on all except for lower sideband. It just wasn't there at all. So I was able to download the PDF version of the manual over the internet and found that it was most likely the edge connector for the filter board that was causing the lack of lower sideband, whereas upper sideband CW and AM etc. was still there. So I replaced the edge connector, which had a great crack down the centre of it where the contacts are, and lo and behold, lower sideband has returned, but a few things have disappeared in the meantime, and that is the noise blanker circuitry and also the AGC. I'll show you what's happening without the AGC at the moment by bringing the gain control up.
Quite nicely now. It's been going perfectly nicely for the last month or so. There's a program.
So there's a conversation going on there, and the S meter, as you can see, is pinning very easily because there's no AGC action at all. So the logarithmic action of the AGC isn't pulling the gain back, so the conversation and indeed some of the static peaks are just pinning the needle. So the AGC needs to be fixed up there, and the noise blanker, and that all comes off this IF board. So the edge connector for that will be 40 as well, and these two boards towards the back are to do on the transmit side with audio, adjustment of balance modulator and modulation percentage for AM etc. So from what I remember, there's a little bit of evidence of cracking there. So these other three sockets for these three boards are going to have to be replaced as well. I'll do a video of that, or at least part of the replacement, so you can see what the sockets look like, and so hopefully next time it's back in the shack position here after the replacement of those additional three sockets. Not only will everything be working on receive again, but also we can give the transmit side a bit of a go, and I can show you that as well. Anyway, over to the next video. These are the four sockets for the boards I was mentioning previously, and this is one socket that I've already replaced for the filter board. The IF board, which is the one causing the present faults, goes into that socket, and two audio boards for the transmit side of things go into those. So I'm going to replace those other three sockets. This is a single-sided one I've got, which I'll put in the IF amplifier position, but I'm buying two more of these for these positions. I prefer these sort of terminals as they've got holes in them that you can put the wires in whilst you're soldering them, whereas these ones you're looping the wire around. I think these are a bit easier to use, but I've gone and bought this socket from another supplier than this one, so I'm going to put it in those positions. You'll also notice that the original boards are single contact for one side of the board, which there only is on the original, whereas here they're double contacts. It's very hard to get single-sided sockets like this one. Even this one's made for double, and the pin out on the bottom too. So it doesn't really matter if you get singles or doubles. The doubles are just much easier to come by these days than the singles. So the other two black ones, which I'm going to put in these positions, will be doubles too. Now that's the original socket for the filter board that was here. As you can see, it's coming apart quite badly. One contact's already fallen out of the end, and this one's going to fall out of there soon. But it's a stress fracture in the plastic that goes along the line of the contacts and ends up coming out at the holes at the end. So anyway, we'll do that, and I'll show you some of the work once it's being done there, and fingers crossed she'll work properly when I finish. This is the original socket that used to be used for the filter board. As you can see, it's coming apart quite badly there, crack running all the way down the line of the contacts and virtually meeting up at the holes at the end. And this is the other socket I was telling you that I'm going to put in, which is a single-sided, but it's made for 2 rows of contacts, even with the holes there. Now let's hope these newer ones have got a better life. Mind you, these are 40 years old, so we don't know what they'll be like in 40 years time, but hopefully the technology in keeping the plastics a bit more stable over time's improved during that time. Anyway, I'll show you some of the work replacing the sockets, and hopefully when they're done she'll be off and running again properly. As you can see, I've now removed 2 sockets, the one for the IF board and one of the audio boards for the transmit. It turns out this socket is okay at the moment. There's a slight crack developing here, but in the area where the contacts are, it's okay. So I'll see if I can use that one as it is and replace these 2 with the same type of socket as this one. And I'm doing that because this socket has got the holes in it, and I noticed as I was taking these wires off the old sockets that a lot of them have got 2 or 3 wires going to the one terminal. So the type of socket where the wire loops around is much more awkward to use in that situation. So to use these for all of these 3 then would be the best idea. So I'll show you the shot of that being done soon, and we'll give it a try. Bye for now. These 2 sockets have now been replaced, and the sockets have to be modified because the length of them where they sit into this recess of the frame is slightly longer on these double new sockets than it is on the old single ones. So I filed down the length of them a little bit, take about a 1/16 of an inch off, and then the holes are a little bit further out too on the new ones, so I've brought them in a bit to match the original holes. But other than that, the sockets are fine. And as I mentioned previously, these are double sockets, which are much easier to get than the single sockets, and they also have the eye on the terminals, which is really handy because some of these wires going on the terminals are actually in bunches of 3s on some terminals. So if it's just a tie post, it makes it very difficult to be looping things around. Anyhow, that's the completed job, and hopefully, fingers crossed, I've got everything correct. So I'll put it back together, switch the power on and see what happens.